So last episode, we premiered the podcast, and I think it was a great success. And I think we should continue doing it indefinitely.
Yes, I thought it was really successful. It went really well. And it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. And I think that was down to the fact that we have quite a small listenership to this podcast. And that made the live chat manageable. Like, it wasn't like there was a gazillion messages whizzing by and you couldn't really interact. Like, it was a real good opportunity to just have the chats while listening to me, to my verbosity on this show. So yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed it. So we're going to do that as standard from now on, folks. The podcast will premiere every single time. One thing that came up during the live chat of the premiere was that people wanted clarification about Artifexian Book Club in terms of spoilers and content. So loads of people were asking, I haven't read the book of the 5th season. Can I stop now, or will there be additional stuff after the book review? Just want to put it on air to make sure we're all clear. We're never going to record any additional content after a book review. So if you haven't read the book, you can just stop the episode right then and there, and you're not going to miss anything. That's a hard rule. We're not going to break that ever.
Yes. We'll keep reminding it during the episode for new listeners or anyone who has missed it previously. But I think that's wise.
Yeah, exactly. On Artifexian Book Club, one other thing on that is people have been sending in suggestions for book club. We'll talk about that in the green room later. Just for the sake of my logistics, if people could submit their suggestions via the form that's going to be linked in the show notes, because again, we're getting them some in Reddit, some in email, some on the form, and it's just kind of all over the shop. So if you have a suggestion, the form will be linked in the show notes, and stick your suggestion in there, and it just makes it so much easier for me to manage. If that's okay. Thank you, folks.
Cool.
All right, so that was that boyo. We have two things in email that I would like to bring up, and one of them is a message for you, Bill.
Attention.
Ian Orr asks, love the most recent podcast, but I have a question. If Urselk are bears with antlers, how do females look? Would they be identical to a bear, or would they be differentiated?
I'm going to say that they also have antlers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Any biological reason for
that? It's cool.
Rule of cool.
I don't know. I'm sure there are examples of antlers on. Maybe not. I hadn't thought about it really. What about on giraffes? You know, what are the bone protrusions giraffes have? What are they called?
No idea.
I'm going to check that out. Ossicones. Yeah, all giraffes have ossicones, I think. So I don't know. I'm going to just Google that really quick. Antlers on female creatures. Reindeer. Female reindeer grow antlers.
Oh, interesting.
It looks like, yeah. And sorry, caribou. Something about caribou came up in the autocomplete there, so maybe caribou do. Maybe caribou is the same thing as a reindeer. That seems likely. But there we go. So I'm going to say that for Urselk, they all have antlers.
Oh,
it's the juveniles have very small ones, like little nubs. But yeah, adult, mature Urselk have antlers of all sexes.
Okay, cool. That was an intriguing one. I was like, I really wanted you to be all like, yeah, no, it's just a bear. The female is just literally a bear. I feel like that tickled me. We also from email. FYI, folks, this is going to be a super short show. This month, just everything's condensed this month. It's weird. We have also an email. We have Ian Riley wrote in and submitted a flag for review in Shit Flag Corner. We have not had Shit Flag Corner in months, like many months. So I was very glad to see another terrible flag come up, and one that I did not know existed. I've never seen this one. It's not one of the stock crap flags out there. This flag comes from the town maybe of Placentia, California. And it is glorious. I hope this is actually real. It is glorious because it's a rectangle, standard rectangle. It's got like a beigey, yellowy background, and then on it is brown text that says Placencia, All American City, in all caps. It's like this brown on brown, like maximizing everything you shouldn't do with flags, and I think it is great. No design.
Look at this.
No design.
Oh, dear.
Who needs design?
Oh dear. That's It's so bad, and also so minimalist. It's like a shit flag a Scandinavian city might have. Like, it's very, very understated in how dreadful it is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it does Placencia. Or let's just do a little quick Google for this place, right?
Placencia.
There must be something. It's in Orange County. The seal is awful as well. There must be something real quick that on Wikipedia that like leads me to believe that there some sort of symbology could be used. Surely we could see something.
To me, it looks very southwestern, doesn't it? With the colours, like it looks like a desert town, which it is not because it's in Orange County. But look, it's practically on the sea.
It looks very cowboyish.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see a lot happening in Placencia through a quick scan of Wikipedia. So maybe they were like, God, nothing actually occurs here. So let's just go with the text on the brown field. But brown on brown, man. That's just great. And the font is boring and it's all caps and it's just it's so terrible. So yeah, Placencia, an all-American city.
Like if it was white on black, it could be like a hardcore brand or something. Placencia, all-American city. But the colours don't even give it that.
No, it's just I have a hard time believing this is actually real because there's like zero effort, just like zero effort. Like there's zero civic pride in just kind of like just whack some text on the thing. What color? Doesn't matter. Brown. It's so good. Anyhow, thank you, Ian Riley, for submitting the flag of Placencia, California. The US keeping up its tradition of creating woeful flags. That is, oh my god, what is that? So we're now like 8 minutes into recording. That's literally all the follow-up I have.
Efficient. Banging out the follow-up straight away.
This might be a very, very, very short show. Oh dear. Okay. All right.
Oh, I have one thing that we could edit in there actually that I just remembered that I heard of yesterday.
Sure, go for it.
So, do you remember ever before talking about the concept of Ruritanian romance?
Oh, vaguely. You need to recap it.
So, the phrase comes from a book called The Prisoner of Zenda by Anthony Hope, which is a Victorian adventure novel. And it's set in the country of Ruritania, which is a kingdom somewhere east of Dresden. So a kind of a fictional Eastern European or Central European nation. And you see these all over the place. Like in Marvel Comics, Doctor Doom is the dictator of Latveria, for example. And it's quite common to create fictional analogues for countries or analogues for countries in a certain region. And these are often called Ruritanias. I was discussing this yesterday with, the art historian?
Yes.
And they told me that one of the first examples of Ruritania, of this kind of country, in literature, is from Prince Otto by the writer Robert Louis Stevenson. And do you know what that country was called?
No.
It was called Grunwald.
No, really?
Yeah. It's a story about Prince Otto of Grunwald. Or Grunwald.
That is brilliant. Now, okay,
there you go.
Here's the thing that always needs to be asked: how is it spelt? Because there are many spellings of Grunwald, and there's only one correct spelling, and I have proprietary ownership of that spelling.
I think it's Grunewald sharpest S umlaut.
Yes. No, but it's actually Grunewald.
I think so.
Yeah, because I'm not confident in this, but something from my childhood memories leads me to believe that I was once told by some family member that the spelling of our name, Grunewald, is like the uncommon version of Grunwald. Because you get like Gru umlaut N Wald. Also, same thing with an additional E in there, but keeping the umlaut. There's a bunch of variations, but I think R1 is relatively uncommon. So that's mad.
Okay.
That is great. I'm like, with my name, it's really weird. Like, for those who don't speak German, it means green forest, like greenwood, which is a really kind of like bog ordinary sort of name. Like, it's not anything, kind of out there. It's a very standard sort of name. But in the context of me, growing up in Ireland, it was always like this exotic name. And every so often I think of it and just like translate in my head and be like, oh, my name is like Mr. Greenwood. And it just seems so like a non-thing, whereas Grunwald has an air of like, ooh, where did you get that name from?
Exotic.
Exotic, tell me about yourself sort of thing. But no, I'm actually just like Edward Greenwood, which is weird.
So we've mentioned before famous literary Edgars, and now we've got a famous literary, or at least notable literary Grunwald as well.
There's a notable Grunwald painter, as far as I know, because I think if you Google Grunwald, you get a bunch of Matthias Grunwald, and this Matthias Grunwald chap, he is Gru umlaut Newald. So there is, it's not like, and as you'd expect with a name like Greenwood, it's not massively uncommon, But that's mad. That is crazy. Nice tangent. Right, shall we go into main topic? God, it feels so weird to just be talking for 10 minutes and then be all like, let's move on. But should we move on?
Let's move on.
We have some world billing.
We certainly do.
What did you bill for us this month?
A military treatise. Okay. A brief military treatise.
Cool. So do you want to just fire ahead?
Engagement of Erthani vessels. A treatise. It is the responsibility of all engaged in offices of influence and command, whether pursuing martial or monetary ventures, to consider the possible conflicts and challenges that may arise should the circumstances of their ventures change or be changed. Any licensed prospector with acumen is prepared for their labourers to agitate, for trade between nations to be disrupted by conflict or weather, or for the whims of the market to turn and spoil their speculations. Any captain of vessels or troops has contingencies for ambush, for estrangement from command, or for mutiny. As such, this treatise is not to be considered an invitation to engage in conflict with the Erthani nation. Such action is prohibited by custom, by treaty, political wisdom, and economic convenience. However, as we have shown, preparation for unforeseen circumstances is a necessary ingredient for success, and insights contained herein may prove applicable to diverse situations other than open conflict with Erthani traders. Tactical concerns. For commanders of aerial vessels, even the meanest patrol craft or corvette has a tactical advantage over any Erthani craft, possessing both superior maneuverability and force of arms. The typical arrangement of batteries on an Erthani vessel is intended primarily to repel boarding attempts or counterattack against hostile forces on land, and is rarely suited to target airborne aggressors. Erthani crews prefer to avoid conflict, and thus sources detailing their habits in combat are scarce. They apparently are willing to engage in combat when forced to, and demonstrate respectable valour, but lack the discipline and training found among company crews or marines. they will typically avoid engagement on solid land where possible, preferring to flee or defend from their vessels. They are likely to employ bandit tactics, using ambushes or rapid engagement and withdrawal. Strategic concerns. Erthani craft are sovereign entities, and any unprovoked assault on a single craft is considered an act of war against the entire nation. Thus, it is forbidden for any company vessel or officer to initiate the use of force against the Erthani. The Erthani present many strategic challenges as potential foes. They maintain sophisticated communications, travel according to sophisticated schedules, and typically travel in convoy. When at sea, Erthani vessels will remain in view of the shore. In all but the most dire situations, they will avoid waters deeper than 8 lengths, due to the undetectable dangers presented by deeper seas. This makes it difficult to engage in opportunistic or limited conflict. Attempts at piracy are thus considered inadvisable, as it is unlikely that such effort, whether successful or not, will escape the notice of the wider Erthani nation. In the event of an open conflict between the company and the Erthani, it is advised that ground forces seize Erthani yards and warehouses in Abeski and company settlements as a first priority. Unfortunately, many groundsfolk view the Erthani as sympathetic, allied, or even as kin, particularly in larger cities where they may share much blood with the Erthani nation. Increasing security at company sites and seized Erthani properties will be necessary to prevent possible unrest amongst the groundsfolk. In cities outside company control, it can be assumed that municipal bailiffs and militia will control any resulting agitation. As always, maintaining positive relations with these authorities is essential for company business. Tamar Company, Military Commission Press.
Cool. Yeah, give us your thoughts before I launch into questions.
This, you won't believe what the initial thought for this was.
BuzzFeed headline.
What?
BuzzFeed headline. You won't believe what the initial thought for this was.
World building clickbait. Yeah, there's just like one kind of throwaway line buried in here that actually is the genesis of this idea. I got thinking about how I've talked a lot about the Abeski and the companies so far, and that their thing is air travel. And I decided I'd write a little bit about the Erthani, from the point of view of the Abeski. About the Erthani and how they operate. And I also realised I had the Erthani operating on the river Agba, and also in the region of Lansk, the river that runs through Lansk. I'm not sure if I've named that. And they aren't connected at all. And they're separated, those two regions are separated by the Usain Belt, and there isn't any canal or anything going through there, or at least I haven't said there is. So I figured the Erthani must have some capacity to travel at sea as well as by river. But why would they mostly limit themselves to river, and what would happen? What would it be like for them to stick to the shore and stuff like that? And I thought, how could I tell that? And a military document is what came to mind, how I would present that information in universe.
Oh, so essentially you made like a world building error, and this is you covering it up.
I didn't make a world building error. I made a world building opportunity.
Exactly. Oh god! Actually, yeah, your BuzzFeed headline was correct. Like, there's no way anyone would have guessed that that's the genesis of this piece. That's cool.
I haven't even said what the actual that particular kernel was. But anyway, I'll get to that at the end if you don't bring it up.
Oh wait, so that wasn't the kernel. The kernel wasn't the world building opportunity.
Something got me thinking about that. That was like I started like half a step in.
Oh wow, okay. I'm definitely not going to get it, but there you go. Okay, let me go through some of my points then. Point number one. This has nothing to do with the world building at all. It's just fun. I love the way you say whim. Because I say whim.
Did I say whim?
You ask.
Oh, I did, yeah.
You aspirated or whatever it is. Whim. And you do that not a lot, but you do it sometimes with W words. Like I've heard you say stuff like where before, like putting in the wh.
Because there's a H there.
yeah, but listen, there's a lot in the English orthography that's there that like we could willingly ignore. But like I don't say that at all. Like I say whim and where and all that sort of jazz. And which. I don't say which. And it's just mad. It's just further craziness with Hiberno English that we grew up not, geographically speaking, not that far from one another, and we just speak totally different dialects, and it's just nuts. Or we have different accents, not really a dialect.
There's no queer where you're from.
There's no where. Yeah, exactly.
No queer.
Where?
Jesus Christ, Edgar. Queer.
Oh, queer. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yes, there's no queer where I'm from. But yeah, it's just mad. Anyway, that, like, again, nothing to do with world building. It's just fun when you said for the whims of the mark, and I was like, oh, that's very cool.
That hits the spot.
In your tactical concern section here, you say for commanders of aerial vessels, even the meanest patrol vessel or corvette has a tactical advantage over any Erthani craft, possessing both superior maneuverability and force of arms. And then you go on a little bit to explain why there's a superiority there. My question is this wishful thinking? Or is this like a statement of fact? Like, are they actually superior, or do they just think themselves superior?
Oh, no, they actually are.
They actually are superior. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I guess that was it, but I just thought I'd bring it up anyways.
I mean, because they are in the air, so they're not bound by, say, a riverbank. And they have 3 dimensions to move in. As opposed to being on a plane and bound by land. Well,
I mean, 4 dimensions, but who counts time?
I guess.
Similarly, you say they are apparently willing to engage in combat when forced to and demonstrate respectable valor, but lack the discipline and training found among company crews and marines. Again, similar. Is this wishful thinking, or is this a statement of fact?
That's a statement of fact. It's probably maybe not as true as is believed here, but particularly with crews, but definitely with marines. Marines are troops. That is their purpose. Their purpose is to fight. Crews their purpose is to crew the vessel, but they fight as well. Whereas with Erthani crews, they are primarily traders. They are willing to protect themselves, and they're willing to protect their cargoes, and they are reasonably good at it. But it's not their purpose.
Cool, because I think this aspect of like military world building is always interesting if you play on the sort of perceived notions of one race of people on another race of people. Like throughout history, so many battles have been lost by the quote unquote like superior side because they've just been all like, we are superior, we don't need to worry about these inferior people, and then they get like crucified on the battlefield because of hubris and things like that. So I think it's always really fun to just be all like, we're so dominant, and then like the subtext is, you're actually not all that dominant, you're just really full of yourself. So I think that's a cool thing to lean into, and it made me think of that.
It's the unreliable narrator thing.
It's the unreliable narrator thing, exactly, yeah. Then under strategic concerns, you have Erthani craft are sovereign entities, and any unprovoked assault on a single craft is considered an act of war against the entire nation. I think you've talked about that before, that sort of concept that they have.
Yes, yeah. And the riot in Lansk, I mentioned that the patrol craft kind of fired across the bows of the Erthani craft, and that was like quite a serious thing to do. It wasn't actually an assault on the craft, but it was kind of threatening it. Well,
and it was threatening assault on the entire nation by extension. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Is that something you made up, or is that drawn from any real life precedent?
I'm not sure. It's certainly not super original. Whether it is, I can't say for sure whether that has existed before, but I mean, I guess like piracy or privateering would only happen under a situation of war. Like if Spain and England are allies, Spanish privateers aren't going to raid English ships unless they can get away with it, and so on. So it's just kind of an extension of that idea. But for the Erthani, like that is their primary thing is they live on the ships. Like they don't have a homeland as such. They don't have like their own nation, like physical nation. They are a waterborne nation.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I slightly disagree with you when you say it's not the most original thing in the world. I think that's really original. I really like that.
Thank you.
It's really cool. Further, I bet you I've missed the kernel already, but hey. Later on, you say 8 lengths. You mentioned a measurement of a measurement. Did we talk about this before as well? Isn't it length is like the height of like one person?
Yeah, a length is a tall person.
Yeah, and then tall people on this world are really tall because of low
Yes.
G. Yeah, okay, grand.
Yeah.
You also mentioned undetectable dangers presented by deeper seas.
Yeah.
Is this the kernel?
Can you put in like a bell ringing sound effect there?
Ding! Is that the kernel?
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, let me go on what I thought about this. Is this just like, the open sea is dangerous, or is that there's like, sea monsters and stuff and they stay away from there?
It is absolutely that there are sea monsters.
Oh, nailed it. So
It is entirely that there are sea monsters.
So did you want to write a piece about sea monsters and then ended up writing a treatise instead?
Kind of, yeah. Because I didn't want to be like super explicit about it. I just kind of wanted to leave it as a little hint. I as I said, coming from the point of view of what the in-universe document would be, I thought about like what would the sea monsters mean, and I've already said that there's this waterborne nation, but I've called them river traders. So, why aren't they sea traders? Why don't they sail? And I feel, there's meant to be monsters in planetary romance, so sea monsters.
Yeah, but also like that's fair and all, but also like there's a big difference in terms of like terrain, if you will, between a river and the open ocean. Like even without sea monsters, you can just be all like the open ocean is too dangerous and too remote, and we just
look. Edgar, they're both wet. That's all I care about. Okay, that's it. That's case closed. No, you're right. You're right.
I was watching Seaspiracy last night. Have you watched that yet?
I have not.
It's well, I don't know. It comes across as being quite good. But as with all of these documentaries, you're only been given like one side.
I still haven't watched Tiger King, so.
Oh man, Tiger King's great. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Anyhow, but the reason why I bring this up is in Seaspiracy, there's this kind of really emotive section, really hits your heartstrings, where basically the whole shtick is that it's about like first world nations overfishing in a very unregulated manner, and it's decimating ecosystems and second and third world nation economies as well, which I can get on board with, because that seems on the face of it, as someone who's completely uneducated about it, I'm just like, that makes sense. But there's this bit anyways in it where there's these two people from, I think it's Liberia, and they're out in an open face canoe, like way out into the sea, and like that's super dangerous in an open canoe to do that, like with just two men. And the question was posed, like, why is this occurring? And it was because the fishermen have been forced to go further and further out, because like the EU is like trawling all of the near shore fish, and so they have to just be forced to move out. And it got me thinking of that, the whole idea that like you don't actually need to invent sea monsters to make the ocean just be a place that's like a place you don't go. Like left to their own devices, none of those fishermen would venture far out into the open ocean. And I could see the Erthani being the same, just being all like, yeah, the ocean's rough, like we just don't go there because it's real rough. But sea monsters is also a good excuse. So can you say anything about the sea monsters, or is this something we need to discover in a further text?
It's something I'll need to think about a little bit more.
Okay. I mean, like, I'm assuming Krakens and that sort of thing.
That sort of thing, yeah, but I don't want it to just be, you know, exact rehashes of existing popular sea monsters.
Krakens with antlers. Just everything with antlers.
Yeah, this is Antler Planet. Welcome to Antler Planet.
Do you know the genesis of the Kraken?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've never looked into that.
Is it in the Bible? I'm pretty sure the Leviathan is in the Bible. I'm not sure if Kraken is. Let me check this real quick. Wikipedia.
The fountain of all knowledge. Kraken. Bitcoin.
Scandinavian folklore.
Okay. God, it is sad that you need to scroll all the way down to the Google search page to actually get to the Kraken, and everything above it is just a whole bunch of Bitcoin. That's mad.
Why Bitcoin?
I think Kraken is an exchange. It's just the name of an exchange. Yeah, Kraken Companies, United States-based cryptocurrency exchange and bank founded in 2011. Do you have any, just completely unrelated, do you have any thoughts on crypto? Is this a thing that you ever think about?
Yeah, it seems quite like a bad idea. The environmental impact of it is enormous, I think. So,
yeah. There's, should I go into this digression? We'll be here for a while if I do. I'll just go for it. I'll cut it if it needs to be. I was listening to, do you know about the NFT stuff that's happened recently?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was listening to some podcasts. Like there was this one podcast, they were taking the piss out of NFTs. Like they made their own NFTs and it was all a big joke and things like that. But they got on people from the crypto world to talk about things. And like, again, much like the documentary, it's kind of like you're only getting one very biased take, but it sounded kind of solid. And like they voiced concerns about like the environmental effect of it. And the Bitcoin advocate was like, or the crypto advocate was like, yeah, there definitely is. But like, you know, crypto is working its way away from like this brute force mining and to like this, I don't know, voting system thing. I don't really understand it, but they're like, it's not like we will be mining forever. And then they also made the point that, you know, you have to also factor in like costs of like normal real currencies and like, you know, all the damage that's produced in maintaining like dollar supremacy and things like that. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. Like we don't think of the sort of like the human cost in maintaining dollar supremacy. We don't think of there being a cost to money at all, really. But like there is, you know, and I'm not saying that it's the same as like, you know, massive Bitcoin mining operations that are just like helping to kill the planet even quicker. But it just gave me pause and think about it and be like, yeah, there is a cost to everything and a cost to having the dollar be the standard. There's a cost in warfare in that, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But it was quite interesting, and I don't know, man. I kind of think to myself that like it might be wise investing a little bit in Bitcoin. I don't know. Like I had this thought after the crash back in 2016, was it? I think it was. There was a massive explosion and crash, and was like, I just presumed Bitcoin was dead or crypto was dead at that point. But I had the thought of being all like, maybe I should get into it. And if I did, I would have made a heap of money out of it, because we just have currently we're living through a massive increase in value in Bitcoin. But then there's the grossness about like, this is just, you know, people making money on betting on how much money Bitcoin will make, and there's no actual, you know, nothing's actually created in the world, you know, it's just rampant speculation for the sake of speculation. But yeah, it's a complicated one, and one that I think that is not, I don't know, I don't think it's as easy as just saying it's a load of nonsense. I think there are some merits to it for sure.
I think there are definitely hypothetical merits to it, but I think right now it's too computationally intense. For the payoff isn't there. It's too computationally intense to justify the benefits of it. Yeah, for sure. There's problems here, but I think at its core, it's a good idea. You know, like this decentralized system of money. That is a good idea. Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah, I could also see government stepping in real fast and shutting the whole operation down if it ever becomes too much of a threat. So there's also that volatility in the market as well. Yeah, it's a complicated one. Anyhow, sorry, that's got nothing to do with Krakens with antlers. But there we go. Man, I am glad I stumbled across that. That is class. Those are my notes. Have you got anything else to add?
Do I have anything else to add? That's neat that you ended on the kernel. I'm
just a skilled podcaster, you know.
I hope it's somewhat at least suggest like you it's clear that there's at least a suggestion here that you can do it if you can get away with it. Is kind of thing. Like you almost certainly won't, but you know if you happen to find a vessel that's come off course by itself and is out of view of the land and it's in deeper waters, it's been blown out into deeper waters, then maybe take a punt at it. It is not what's being said here, but it's not what's not being said.
Yeah, it's about the notes you don't play.
yeah. Jazz warfare.
100%. That definitely comes across. 100%.
Okay, good. Yeah. Good. I think that's everything. In this last paragraph, he's like it's many groundsfolk view the Erthani as sympathetic allied or even as kin. And that was demonstrated in the riot on Lansk, where the Erthani attempted to help evacuate people from the field where they were being attacked by the company troops. That sort of sense of solidarity between Erthani and regular Abeski groundfolk is definitely there. Everything we've kind of read has been written by privileged people within Abeski society.
Oh, that's interesting. Would we ever get documentation from...
maybe not everything. There was the Agitator's Progress, which was written by agitators. But everything else has been...
Yeah, I was about to say, would we get more from non-privileged people?
I would like to. Yeah, I'd like to write some more of that.
That's interesting. Because that's an interesting sort of dichotomy there. Because if I try and think of like colonial times, I could be wrong here, but the impression I get is it may not have been uncommon for the regular people in a colonial who living under a colonial power, as in like just say English people living under the English Empire, the British Empire. I'm assuming they would look at others they were colonizing with some degree of contempt, because like everyone was racist back in the day. It seems kind of weird in this setup that you have like the Abeski privileged section looking disfavourably on the Erthani, but then the groundsfolk, as you say, looking quite favourably. That's a really interesting sort of thing, you know, because you kind of expect all Abeski to just be all like, oh, they're savages. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but I think that's quite interesting. I think it's quite good. I think could we get the seeds of a sort of like a populist rebellion here, where they're just so fed up with the economic entities that control everything, and they're all like, stop killing us, or stop like hurting us people, us being fellow Abeski and these Erthani people and others.
There's definitely an element of that. They wouldn't. The Erthani aren't direct subjects of colonialism.
Yeah, but like economic colonialism, no.
Yeah, they're economically certainly in a lesser position, but they are more accessible for groundsfolk, because they're there and they bring stuff from upriver or downriver that could have traveled a long distance, whereas the trade of the companies is a little bit like harder to access. And as I said, like they share blood, especially like in somewhere like Lansk, which is on a big city. Then there will be intermingling between the populations. And the idea of nations isn't not quite like it was for the era of colonialism on Earth. So the identities aren't quite as aren't quite conceived of in the same way. But yeah, it is an interesting. I'm glad that you think that it's an interesting kind of difference.
I think so.
Cheers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well played, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Should we do some Edgar stuff?
Let's do some Edgar stuff.
God damn it, Edgar. Okay, so I made a video called Coastal Landforms for Fantasy Mapping. Bill, you've watched it. What do you think?
I have watched it. I really enjoyed it.
Really?
Yeah.
This video was, behind the scenes stuff here, was like the worst video I have ever made in terms of production problems. It was late. Nothing worked. I lost a whole bunch of data midway through making the video.
Oh, no.
It was the most stressful, it was so bad. And like I had it built up in my head that it was just going to be a disaster, and I'd publish it and people be like, this is crap. So I'm glad that you didn't think it's crap. And I'm glad as well that the commenters didn't think it was crap either. But it was a nightmare making this one, man. I'm really glad to see the back of it. But yeah, do you have any thoughts?
I guess the main thing I want to say is, at several points, I found myself repeating terms that you'd said in the video and going, "Oh, fuck yeah!" Like I have written down here in my notes, logarithmic spiral beaches, fuck yeah. Drowned river valleys, fuck yeah, dendritic. And then fringing reefs, atolls, fuck yeah. Now those are only three that I happened to write down, but I had the reaction to many things, tombolos and all like the sea caves and stuff. Man, I got super hyped for that.
Good. That was the effect. Good.
It was a very aesthetically pleasing video, and like not just for your lovely visuals, and the photos that you chose, not just for those reasons, but also just like as concepts, like the coves and the sea caves. It's all very aesthetic and very adventurous.
This is one of the points I want to bring up, and I think it's a good segue into it. Both you and commenters kind of got the subtext of the video, which I think is really great, in that like this is technically on paper a sort of, I would say, fairly workman-like rendition of kind of secondary school geography. But I
have a point about that, but go on.
Okay, but the idea about it is that it's like, let's quickly all learn where coves should go, where tombolos go, where all this crack goes, and then now that you're aware of these landforms, try and think about these landforms as story triggers and as things to create stuff. So like, now you know where a cove goes, think about like, what can I do with a cove in a story? Like I can do maybe like secret pirate smuggling activities, or, now that you know where fjords go, like think about stories surrounding that. So loads of commenters were doing that. They're kind of like, oh, that's really cool. Drowned river valleys, that's dope. I can do X, Y, and Z with it. And that was really gratifying to see that people think about that. Because for the most part, like, it affects fantasy mapping on the local scale, but not on a global scale. Like you don't see, sea caves and coves when doing a world map, but it can really affect local stuff, and I think it can be a really great narrative source. Like you can think of, allegories for whatever cultural, say, conflict you have set up in a world. You can use physical structures as like allegory for that. Like, I have some sort of like tides washing, against the cliff can be an allegory for, things coming and going or whatever. So there's like using physical landforms that we've all learned in secondary school geography and thinking about them in a fantastical way and a story trigger way is what I was kind of going for as subtext. And I'm glad that people got that.
Yeah.
No. What was your point about secondary school geography?
I had a flashback to junior cert geography when you used the phrase longshore drift.
Yeah, same.
all of a sudden it was 2002 again, and I was in Miss Daly's class in ASCA.
Miss Daly. Shout out to Miss Daly. I thought as well I'd receive some criticism about that as well. Be all like, hey, this is literally secondary school work. Like, what are you doing here? But I didn't.
No, that wasn't a criticism at all.
No, but I thought others would. I thought others would be all like, I came here to learn about fantasy worlds, not to like redo like secondary school geography. But most people kind of got it and we're like, yeah, we're here to just like recap where these things go, and then we're going to start thinking about them in terms of fantasy world building. So that was dope. It was really good.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So let me just check the timestamp here, make sure I get this right. Oh god, these ads are so stupid.
Oh, can I complain about the ads on YouTube slightly?
Yeah, please do.
I know I set the videos to have ads, so I'm not complaining that the video has ads. I'm going to complain about like non-consensual ads, like ads that I don't have any control over. Those really annoy me. Like YouTube has a thing now where it's like double and triple stacking ads, like one after another in sequence.
Yeah.
And like there's no, that as far as I can tell, there's no toggle I can switch to turn that nonsense off. And it's just YouTube's just like, that's what's happening now, like deal with it. And that really frustrates me because like I try and select ad types that aren't massively invasive. Like I try to tell YouTube, don't put ad breaks, where it cuts to a skippable or non-skippable ad in the middle of the video. Don't do that. Like that, I don't want you to do that. Put it at the start or put it at the end. And I also ban non-skippable ads because I think they can be gross, particularly when people like upload like a 2-minute long ad and it's not skippable. It's awful. So I try and tailor it so that the experience is like okay for most people, and it really frustrates me then when YouTube goes, yeah, so I see all the settings you've done there and like we don't care, and like that really annoys me.
But Edgar, you're being very selfish here. The number has to get bigger. The line has to go up. If you don't have ads, how will the line go up?
Exactly. I think my conspiracy theory is that this is all a ploy. This sort of ad proliferation on YouTube is a ploy to get people to just get so frustrated with free YouTube that they'll buy premium. Because like YouTube's going to make a whole bunch of bank on premium. And yeah, just make the free version as awful as possible, and then everyone will move over. And I just think that's gross and awful. Like, you should make premium so good that I can't refuse it, as opposed to making the free version so bad I have to refuse it. You know what I mean?
It works for Spotify.
Oh yeah,
Spotify free. Using it was so frustrating.
Yeah, it was. I remembered it being almost like borderline unusable.
Maybe it's changed now. This is about 6 or 7 years. I lost my card, so I had to cancel my card. So my Spotify subscription stopped working until I got a new one. So I was bumped back down to free, and like you couldn't pick specific tracks to listen to.
Yeah.
And it didn't play things in order, which when you're trying to listen to classical music, when you're trying to listen to like a symphony or an opera or something, the order things happen in is pretty important.
Yeah, I remember that. I think that was one of the reasons why, this is one of the reasons why I don't use Spotify, because I tried to use it for free many years ago and was like, this is total trash, and I just don't use it. Yeah, and also I think Spotify is pretty gross as a company. But hey, look, like in tech land, they're all gross. Like every single tech company is just massively gross, and that's an unfortunate reality of the modern world. But anyhow, how did we get onto that digression? What was I talking about before? Rant?
Because I went to check something in the video, and then it made me watch a silly ad. Of what looks like a very terrible game, and then I complained about ads, and that's how we got onto it. Okay, let me just check this here really quickly. It was about barrier beaches. Mm-hmm. So when you've got a barrier beach with a lagoon behind it, mm-hmm. and then a storm breaches that barrier breach, mm-hmm. Breaches that barrier beach, is the water within no longer a lagoon because it's not separated from the open water?
No, it's still a lagoon. It still will have significant barring, and that makes the waters quieter, and it's a lagoon.
Okay, cool, grand.
It's only when the barring is like significantly reduced that it loses its lagoon-y quality.
So small breaches don't count, but when it's breached enough that it stops being kind of relatively still.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Fun fact as well, barrier breaches move with time. I didn't include this in the video, but they can...
Because of longshore drift?
No, they... yes, and also...
Yes! Are you proud of me, Miss Daly?
but also they move inward. So like barrier breaches are, geologically speaking, only really temporary structures. Because if you imagine like the wind... particularly if the wind is blowing onshore, the wind will like pick up sand from one end of the barrier beach, like the seaward end, and then like dump it on the landward end of it. So it's just like the barrier beach will continuously progress into the shore and eventually disappear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is I always think is really fun, considering that like we love to build stuff on barrier beaches. And all of it is like, that we don't need to worry about it because it's a geological time frame, but it is fun to think about humans, like prime real estate is on this like temporary structure that like isn't going to be around forever. I think that's really weird to think.
That was that question. I have a slightly tangential question about wetlands. So you talked a bit about the coastal wetlands, which also enjoyed that very much. But I have a more general question about wetlands for you. So I've seen this thing go around a few times now. I've seen it maybe 3 times. Images explaining the meanings of different types of wetlands. You might have seen this. So a bog or a mire is a wetland that's acidic, that is a pH of greater than 7. A fen is an alkaline wetland, a pH less than 7. A swamp is a wetland whose dominant vegetation is trees and woody plants. And a marsh is a wetland with other forms of vegetation that are dominant. And I've asked this a few times when I've seen it pop up, but I haven't gotten a reply. Do you know anything about these terms?
No, outside of what you just said, no.
Okay. It's not clear to me whether those are exclusive terms, because a bog has a pH greater than 7. So it's acidic, and that's what makes it a bog. But it seems to have some degree of vegetation in it. So is a bog then also a marsh? Because those plants aren't trees. That vegetation isn't trees. Or can you not have enough vegetation when it's not neutral or something? This is a question I would like answered. Give me an answer, Edgar. I demand explanations.
Can the answer be I don't know?
Yeah, that's absolutely valid. Absolutely.
I honestly don't know. But guessing, part of me suspects that it falls into a lot of nomenclature things in this sort of sphere where it's just kind of like there's no real set meaning there. It's like with bays. Like, what's the difference between a bay and a sound and a gulf? And the answer is I don't know. There's no real kind of like hardcore set sort of thing. Now, it may well be that with wetlands it is in fact there are in fact clear delineations between each. But I don't know. I suspect it's probably just like we use a whole bunch of random terms in a haphazard sort of way. Yeah.
Because it seems like there'd be overlap. Like, surely there are plants that don't need perfect neutrality to exist. And I mean, even in the photos here, I can see vegetation in the picture of the bog and in the picture of the fen. So
yeah, it thinking on it more though, like from the textbooks I was reading, like with the wetlands, the definitions they gave in the textbooks were based on vegetation and not on pH, not on acidity. So it's just like, swamps are like woody trees, marshes are like shrubs and herbs and that sort of thing, and then I think bogs are like mosses and that sort of crack.
Okay.
They defined it based on vegetation with no mention of acidity whatsoever. But then again, if I was reading a book like exclusively on wetlands, there might be more detail on that. I was reading general geography books.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well, thank you for indulging my digression.
No worries.
And I have one more question. So, rocky shores happen along active margins, and sandy plain shores happen along passive margins. What's a margin?
Like a tectonic margin, like a plate boundary.
Okay.
So if you think about the United States as a good example, the West Coast, I always get this mixed up for reasons I don't really understand, but the West Coast, that's on an active margin and you have loads of mountain building there, so you're going to have a ton of rocky coasts. Whereas if on the West Coast, like in the Gulf area, that's nowhere near a margin, like, because the nearest margin is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and that's mostly dominated by coastal plains.
Right. Okay, so that's just like, that's very broad scale. You're talking very big picture there.
Yeah.
Okay, because obviously you do have sandy beaches in the West Coast.
Yeah. It's about like, what will be dominant overall.
Okay,
yeah.
And like, what about places that don't have any tectonic nearby? That makes them. So that makes them passive because they're not near a tectonic edge.
Exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Then just to be clear, that doesn't mean that, like, if you have a small island in the middle of fucking nowhere, with no margins around it at all, that doesn't mean that island has to be exclusively, beachy. Like, you can have cliffs and stuff like that as well. It just won't be the dominant feature.
Okay. Gotcha. That is all of my notes. Yeah, no, really, really good video. Your art was really nice in this one. And great, like, choice of photographs and stuff, made it a joy to watch.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm genuinely relieved to hear that, because it was such a nightmare. It was so bad. Oh my god. The last point I have on it, and all of this again is going to be covered in follow-up videos as well for people if they need to hear it again. But the one of the important things I think that people, along with the story triggers, kind of copped was scale. And I never really talked about scale, and I probably should have talked about scale, but most people got it, that like a lot of these landforms only show up on small scale. That's really important. Like, don't be building a tombolo across an ocean. Like, that's just not going to happen. Like, so lots of the stuff.
The Florida to Venezuela land bridge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So lots of this stuff is only going to crop up if you make like small local maps, like coastal. If you have a coastal city, for example, you might see some spits showing up and things like that. So it doesn't. It's a very niche thing, and it's not really generally applicable to the large scale mapping that we usually do. But it does kick in at small scales, and it's worth thinking about it accurately and setting up correct spits and all that sort of jazz. So scale is very important here.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. That's that. So, Green Room, Artifexian Book Club. I have a suggestion for the next book that we should read. Do you want to hear it?
Let's hear it.
So, the book is called Axiom's End, and it's by Lindsay Ellis.
Okay.
The reason why I'm kind of breaking the rules here for Artifexian Book Club a little bit, but it's kind of, I think it's still thematically appropriate. Lindsay Ellis is a YouTuber. Now, it is rare that YouTubers write books all the time, and they're usually like ghost written biographies or autobiographies, whichever one the correct term is. I can never remember. It's usually those. They're usually crap. They're usually not really worth your time. So it's rare that a YouTuber writes a work of fiction. It's even rarer that they write a work of like genre fiction, so fantasy or sci-fi. And it's even rarer again that apparently this work of fiction is good. So like I had a look. So the critics really like this book, and I think then we should give it a crack because it's written by a YouTuber. It's about it's a sci-fi book, and it is apparently decent. Now it probably breaks some of the rules with regards to the whole like world building has to be extremely prominent in it. But I think for those aforementioned reasons, I think it'll be a good fun thing to read.
Sure.
Cool. And it's available on audiobook for people who want to get it. It's narrated by Abigail Thorne from Philosophy Tube. So then again, it's further sort of like YouTubers getting together to create literature. Okay. So I think it could be a fun experiment. So I'll leave links in the show notes to all this sort of stuff, to the book, and people can pick it up if they want. And we will hopefully maybe next month review it. And the other thing I was going to say is, yeah, going forward after that, Bill, I was wondering, this might be really boring for people, but like I really want to read the rest of the Broken Earth series because it was just so good. Could we maybe read the second and possibly third book going forward?
I have read the second one.
Oh, is it good? Is it good?
Yeah.
It's cool. Have you read the third one? No.
I have not.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, well then, in fact, let's definitely say that the one after Axiom End is going to be the second book because you've already read it. You've already done the work. That's perfect.
I will have to reread it, but yeah, okay.
Right. Oh, well, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so Axiom End, and then we'll do the second installment. I'm sorry if people are kind of like, I don't want to hear about Broken Earth, but like I as emphasized in the last show, it is so good. Like it really had a very profound effect on me. Like this is a great book, and I just want to finish the whole thing. So may as well do it on air. Make content out of everything. This is the YouTuber's philosophy. That is, oh Jesus, that's it, man. That's all I have.
Follow up.
Follow up. That's at the start of the show. What are you doing?
Sorry, follow up. Green Room. Sorry, Green Room. Green Room.
I was going to complain about Poldark to Bill, folks, but Bill hasn't watched the crucial part of Poldark that I want to complain about. So a whole swad of this show has been cut.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. See, I want to finish reading it. I want to read ahead before I watch the next because I've consistently been ahead on the show, and then I said no, I want to actually because I read a few of the books, but I was behind, so I wanted to catch up.
Wait, but hold on. Oh, that's interesting. So we figured out off air that you possibly are on season 4 of Poldark. As far as I'm aware, you may need to fact check this. Season 5 is not related to the books.
Really?
Yeah, I read this somewhere that season 5 is like
because like there's a rake of books left.
Where that
at the end of season 4.
I distinctly remember. Hold on.
Oh, that's upsetting.
That's kind of what I wanted to complain about.
All right.
Hold on. Let me see. You want to give me anything here? Okay, not that I can scan. Season 2 has the lowest ratings apparently. Well, of 10 reviews. Okay, well then who cares? Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to fact check that, but for some reason I remember reading that. But what you've watched so far and what you've read so far, what do you think? I think you're a Poldark fan, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I love
it. My favorite part about the show is that no spoilers here, folks. Don't worry about it. Is just the cliff pornography. It's great.
Oh yeah, it's visually gorgeous.
It's just like any opportunity to show people like standing.
And I don't just mean the cast.
Yeah, the geography is gorgeous.
Yeah,
makes me want to really go to Cornwall.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then I remember that Cornwall's in England and holidaying in
for the moment.
For the moment, exactly. But holidaying in Europe can be quite expensive, particularly Northern Europe. So you can go spend a week in Cornwall, and for the same money, you could like probably fly to Southeast Asia and live it up for like 2 weeks. So there's always part.
You reckon?
Yeah. I mean, my experience of Indonesia, man, like aside from the flight's expensive. The flight is very expensive. But like once we were in Indonesia, it was just like I couldn't fathom how incredibly cheap it was. Like we're talking like, there was we went out one night for a meal in a restaurant, and it was something like €1, the equivalent of €1 for like a course. Like it was insane. Like you could like I tried so hard to be all like, let's spend more money. You just can't, like you just couldn't. And the final day in Indonesia, we were like, okay, we have so much money left in the bank out of the budget. Let's go to like a really fancy schmancy restaurant and like really live it up like kings. And I think we were rid of like €30 in doing that, and this was like a fancy restaurant. Like this is,
wow.
You might spend maybe 100 in an Irish restaurant. The equivalent was like 30 quid. It's just like it's just so cheap. Whereas I don't think that.
I don't know, but the flights are the major issue here.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on where you would stay in Cornwall. Like, I imagine if you were to stay in a very scenic location in like a nice B&B or whatever, you could be rid of a whole bunch of money. Like, you know, way on TV they have the what's that where B&Bs compete with one another. What's that called? Come down with me. The other one. Four in a bed. Do you know Four in a bed?
No, I've never heard of that.
Well, it's four B&B owners. They each go and stay in each other's B&Bs, and then they like rate each other, and then whoever wins gets like a thing saying that they won four in a bed. And that's sometimes on here during the day, and you look at the prices sometimes it's charged, and it's like, oh, it's like €150 or sterling a night in this B&B, and you're like, oh. And, you know, you stay there for 2 nights. Suddenly you kind of have, you know, the majority of a flight out to Southeast Asia.
I guess.
I'm convinced of it. Like, you can rough it in hostels and things like that, for sure. Like, there is possible to do it cheap, but like, I was profound the level of cheapness in Southeast Asia for me. Like, it was just kind of like, wow, this is insane. To the point where I felt rich, it was mad, man. I was kind of like, I now have so much money. Like, I didn't have a lot of money, but it was like, it felt like so much money. It's like, this must be how rich people feel, where you can just go through the world and you don't have to worry about money because it's just like you can afford everything. It's fine. It's weird. It's such a weird sensation.
Yeah, I don't think I'd like that.
You what?
I don't think I'd like that.
I think it has a corrupting influence. I think if you lived long enough like that, you'd become a real douche real fast.
Yeah.
Even someone with the best of intentions may not survive it. That's the show.
That's the show.
I'm sorry if it's a short one, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. Do let us know if you don't like these short ones, and we won't pad it out just for the sake of it, but we will find some sort of nice way of making it longer if you do want a longer show.
I'll go back to 3-page world building just to.
Bill writes a book every month. Anyway, so that's the show. Thank you so much for listening, folks. Thank you for being in the chat. Hi, chat.
Cheers, guys. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for supporting the show on Patreon. Links in the description to that. And we will see you next month for some more Artifexian podcast. Until next time,
Edgar out.